All right, on this particular day, we knew we were fishing some adverse weather conditions. We got up that particular morning, saw that the wind wasn't too terribly bad yet, but we knew it was gonna probably get high on us, and it's coming out the southeast. We had a approaching squall line and a front system coming, but I like to go out on days where the weather's not perfect. It does a multitude of different things. One, it's going to keep the boats off the lake, which that helps you to move around easier. You get nice fresh passes on the bridge. You know, the bridge is known for being really crowded, and this is the time when you have adverse weather conditions and you catch it during a weekday, you can get the whole bridge to yourself. And some of my greatest days ever have been fishing during adverse weather conditions like we had on this particular day. All right, today we got an east wind coming at our back, and a big mistake a lot of anglers make out here is they think just because the flow of waves is going east to west, that's an incoming tide. We have a hard falling tide against it. This is one of the harder situations to fish because you got movement of the water going one way and the tide going the other. But there's a lot of days where the fish are on the falling tide side of the bridge, even though the wind's at your back. And that's how we're catching them right now. All right, when you get these big east winds like we had today, it's gonna push in the Pearl River system into the lake, and when that happens, you'll always see these, like, it almost looks like soap suds or foam, like a big foam streaks on the water in the lake, and that seems to happen on big east winds. It's something to do with the mixture of, it could be more salt water coming in from the Mississippi Sound. I think it, in my personal opinion, I think it's fresh water coming in from the Pearl River system and mix them with the salty water in the lake, and you get these big streaks of salty, of salt and fresh water mixing across the surface of the water. And on this particular day, that was happening, but before the wind got too hard, the tide was falling against the wind, so you had the wind at your back with the tide falling in your face. And so we caught most of our trout along the trestle on the east side with the tide falling in our face. And a lot of people don't like fishing that way because it's very complicated, because your line's getting moved in multiple directions. You have the wind blowing it one way and the tide pushing it the other. And that's why it's so important to use line that you can see really well. That way you can watch it go to the bottom and so on and so forth. That's why we use our matrix line, because it's a high vis line. That's a good one. That's a good one. Come on at you. Woo! Get the cameraman wet. You know they bite when the cameraman's soaked. The cameraman with the fish slap. Again, holy jolly. Been slanging that color. Nice, beautiful trout. And a lovely trestle. One of the most important things you want to be observing on and look for during the winter parts of the year, that's water temperature between 55 and 65 degrees, is the loons. Loons are the birds that look underwater and they swim underwater, and I've seen it just too many times where the loons are hanging out with the speckled trout, which tells me whatever loons like to eat is the same thing trout like to eat during this time of the year. So always, always focus on where the loons are, especially on the bridges. You know, the trestle's 6 miles long. If you see a group of 40, 50, 60 loons in a certain area, that's where the trout are at, no doubt. And that's what we've been seeing this year, and the loons have been staying on the northern end of the lake, and so has the speckled trout. The northern end, as we're in February here, the northern end of the lake's been much better and more effective. That's where all the loons are. We tried the southern end of the lake on this particular day. Had a nice southeast wind. It was nice and calm on that end, but all the fish we caught was on the northern end. Soon, the fish are going to be on the southern end too and across the whole bridge, but February is one of them months that they'll kind of group together. You got to figure out where they are and just grind out on the, milk the area that the few fish that are out there are at. Fishing at Trestle, it's really known for a lot of big quality fish out here. That seems to happen more in the colder parts of the month. As the water temperature rises, you get more of these. Whoop, grab that one. But nonetheless, that's far from anything small. That's a solid 16-inch trout. We'll take them all day. A little bit earlier this month, we were getting fish with a lot of sores on them. That's them coming out of the mud for the winter, leeches getting on them. But now that the water's warm and these fish are starting to look pretty healthy, but you can still see this one's got a few small sores. That's something we've been dealing with all winter. We had 2 hard freezes this year, and luckily it didn't look like we had any fish kills, but it did obviously make the trout go into different mode, go into survival mode. But this fish all in all looks pretty good. All right, well, after fighting the waves and the wind for too long, we had to get out of there. In the morning, we had the falling tide up against the east wind, which you can fish the bridge when it's like that, even in the high winds, because the tide's going one way, the wind's going the other. It keeps the boat stationary and it's easy to maneuver. But once the tide quit falling, the wind just overpowered everything. We had to deal with high waves, high wind, and an incoming tide. So we basically got blown off the lake. Now that's gonna happen a lot in the springtime, but there's so many bass around in just about any canal you wanna try, maybe in some of the subdivisions like we have in our backyard. It really doesn't matter where you try, what area. You take a little rod, get deep in the marsh, get in the subdivision canal, and just, if you're already launched and you want to fish them longer and the winds blow you off the lake, blow you off the bridges, the bass are everywhere. We went in this one little bitty canal close to Irish Bayou, had a lot of grass on the bottom, started off simply casting and retrieving a matrix shad on a 5/16 above the grass, caught a couple little knothead bass like that. As the vegetation got thicker, I switched over to the matrix mullet. There was nothing to it. Some beautiful bass were crushing the matrix mullet, the Bayou Bengal color, and they were in that grass, pretty thick. We could have, I don't know, we probably caught 5 or 6 on one little drift, could have easily limited out on bass back there. And it just shows, if you're out there and you get if let's say the tide's going to change and you don't want to wait for it to change in the lake, you could just simply go catch the bass. Or like what happened to us today, if the weather gets too bad, if the wind gets too high, sneak off in some of these little canals as the wind's not going to be such a factor on you, and catch all of the bass you want. But we're getting into the spring. Fishing's about to really heat up and kick off. So get out there, book a charter with us if you want. Pick up some Matrix products if you want to do it yourself. Check out all of our DockSide TV episodes. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. And as we get into March, April, and May, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Crappie fish, bass fish, speckled trout fish, redfish, you name it, we got it. Check out all our DockSide TVs on all of those species of fish. And until next time, good fishing.